Making connections over 200 episodes won't be easy. Join me on this journey of conversation where I connect with those people that have gotten me this far so I can go even farther. This is the Dependent Independent Podcast.
And this is a MiniSode.
Hey there, everyone, and thank you for downloading and listening to MiniSode 61 and a half of the Dependent Independent Podcast. I'm your host, Nick G., and this is a podcast about making connections, looking back while moving forward. In these minisodes, I get my listeners and anyone listening to the show caught up on what they missed from our last episode, what's been going on with me, and any life lesson tidbits that have popped up in my head since the last time we posted our show, and what you can anticipate in future episodes. If you're new to the show, all the hyperlinks to download this podcast, subscribe, and rate are all in the show notes of this show. Not only do we put these shows and other shows on the podcasting feeds all over the interwebs, but we also occasionally post our videos and put them on YouTube, so you can subscribe and watch these videos on the Dependent Independent Podcast page, and follow us and the entire Dependent Independent community at our Facebook page at the Dependent Independent Podcast page. So it's a night. I'm doing a minisode. Last night I was up super late doing a promo video that we did right here in the TDI, or Dependent Independent Podcast Studios. I don't want to say TDI. It was a great acronym, but it seems like everyone on God's great earth is doing a podcast and calling them something that the acronym is TDI. So we're going to stick to the Dependent Independent Podcast. But I want to rifle through this because I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. We're out late, and a local town had its birthday, and there were fireworks, and we're up late, and I had to do that promo video last night, so that went on the interwebs last night. And I appreciate everyone who's commented on it. It's really awesome. I love doing this. It's great. So episode 61, I was joined with Liz Wiley, or by Liz Wiley. Liz Wiley is a rambler, a blogger. I had a great time hanging out with her. We were Skyping. She was in her backyard in Vegas, where it was like 103 degrees. Her mom was hanging out. It was an unbelievable time. And I mean that, sometimes people, I was thinking, I think I saw that on a feed or a podcast post today about people, every time they introduce a guest, they go, "What's the greatest guest ever?" My wonderful guest, or she actually was great. I haven't yet to have a co-host on the show that I didn't like. And it was so much fun that she was able to join me, and she's now part of the Dependent Independent Podcast community, so I'm excited that hopefully we can have her on the show again. She's such a huge supporter of the show. We talked about, I actually can't remember what we talked about. Go listen to the show. That's crazy. I'm having a mental part right there. But go listen to the show. Remember, download it on iTunes and any other place you find podcasts, whether it be Android or iOS apps on the interwebs. So I want to get through this, and I've been thinking about this all day, or at least all week. I want to talk about paying it forward, and I don't know if I've ever done a podcast about paying it forward. I might have, but this is weird. This is a weird kind of pay it forward. So I've been doing a lot of things for a long time, both in my career and also doing this for about 2.5 years. I was a novice when I started, had no idea what I was doing here, and now I feel I'm the real deal. People are telling me I'm the real deal, and it's a lot of fun, and I know a lot of you are listening, and we're a podcast first. I know some of you are watching, but most of you are actually listening to this show. I've been really thinking about not only paying it forward, but also expectations, right? For the 50th episode, one of our topics we talked about was expectations. Now, not so much expectation about kind of like meeting expectations, but what happens when you exceed your own expectations? And I mean, not just simply your ones you set for yourself, but ones that, kind of. Let me put it in perspective, at least for me, because my brain is melting at this point. So when you want to be good at something, or you want to be proficient at something, you set expectations by following others, right? You decide to look up to people. If you're new to something, especially in podcasting, you listen to other podcasters, or you have a career where you look at other people that have been doing what you want to do or make a living with, that have been doing it for a really long time. And then you put your time into it, right? You study, you learn, you apply, you fail, you fuck up, you all these things that you build your repertoire of things to do to be good at something. And eventually you get to a point where you somewhat have to be reminded that you're actually proficient and good and a pro. And I've always struggled, I think, in my life with ever thinking that what I'm doing is ever good enough. That might be just the way I was raised, and I've talked about my father on the show before. I don't know if that might have something to do with it, but I'm never really satisfied in what I'm actually doing. So I never feel I've ever made it. And the weird thing is the last week since I posted episode 61, it has been this eye-opening thing where all these opportunities are coming to me now simply because I put my time in. So, for instance, in my job, I'm an executive in the HR field, and 10 years ago, when I joined this professional HR chapter where we sit and network and intermingle and connect with a lot of like-minded HR professionals, I was a new kid. I didn't know what the hell the profession was. Remember, I studied art. I was just happy to be there, and I had this desire to grow in this career, but I had no idea what I didn't know. So all I did was simply look up to people who did what I wanted to do. Executives and influential people and people that mentor others and all this stuff. And that's how I learned what I know how to do. So I was able to grow in my career. And after nearly 20 years of doing what I'm doing, I've kind of reached the moment where now it's actually my turn to pay it forward. And what I mean is it would be extremely selfish for me not to share what I've learned with others that are starting in the same place I did nearly 20 years ago. So I was recently engaged on the phone by the president of my HR chapter, who is actually a mentor. One of the greatest, his name's John Baldino, one of the greatest mentors I've ever had. I remember everything he's ever said to me. He's guided me along very difficult obstacles in my career and helped me overcome it by just simply being real. So this is the type of guy that if he called me and said he was opening a butcher shop and he needs someone to throw out the guts at the end of the day, I would simply show up 10 minutes early to do that job because that's how I feel about him. But he called me up, wanted to engage me about taking part in a committee in our HR chapter, a volunteer committee where I can help other people get back into their careers or start their careers or earn a living by picking a job that may lead to a career, which is something I'm extremely passionate about. So I realized, and I came to grips with him, or on the phone, I came to grips with the fact and told him on the phone that I think I'm ready to get back and involved in this chapter and actually start giving back. And it wasn't until I actually said it that I realized that that's actually what it is, right? I actually want to give back. You spend all this time as you're getting good at something by taking things from others, whether it be knowledge, learning from their mistakes or something. And I think we all kind of hit a point where it's time to give back and pay it forward. I know they say give back, but it's really paying it forward because you're helping someone else, not simply the person that helped you because they're off doing other things. And not only have I been thinking a lot about paying it forward with my career, I've also been thinking about paying it forward with this. A year ago, I attended the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Convention, which took part in Swedesboro, New Jersey, managed by a guy named Super Joe Pardo. If you get a chance, he's got a podcast called The Dreamers Podcast. You can find him everywhere you can find this podcast. And he is a pure soul. And Joe put feelers out there to get everyone excited to hear other like-minded podcasters talk and educate me and everyone else on how to either make creative decisions with their podcast or any decisions that may lead to monetary gains with their podcast, because some people use this to make a living, promote their business, all these types of things. And I had a great time. I think I talked about it. I met with Jen Crawford, who's from the Jellyvision podcast. She and I met. Jen, I hope you're coming this year. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. But I'm in a different place now than I was a year ago because doing this every week, I mean, my teeth to the grindstone, really churning away. I'm a different podcaster now than I was than the first time that I was on I went to the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Convention, or they call it MapCon. But this year I decided to go for broke, figuring that I've learned a few things doing this, that now I'm going to pay it forward. So I'm going to be speaking this September. I can't remember the dates, but I'll probably throw it in the notes, not in this show or whenever I get a chance, and promote it as we get closer. But if you're in the South Jersey area and you're looking to get into podcasting or you are a podcaster, it's an unbelievable opportunity to actually network with other podcasters. And I'm going to have 8 minutes, and I know what I'm going to talk about, but I'm not ready to share it right now because I proposed it, and now I have to chew on it because I was fully excited. But I made the commitment to pay it forward because having all that knowledge in my head is not worth it at all if I'm not sharing it with everyone. And giving it back to those people, or at least to the people that need it, because I've taken it from someone else. It's like this weird relay race where I'm taking the baton from somebody and giving it to somebody else. You can't really pick who's going to be impacted by what you share with them or who you're going to inspire. I had a conversation with a podcaster today, a friend of the show, Jess Brannis, and we had this interesting conversation. And I mentioned before, I'm not really it's very hard for me to acknowledge how well I might be doing at something. Some people call it humility, but I think there's a difference between being humble and then completely oblivious to the fact that you're actually doing something well. I never really allow myself the opportunity to actually, I don't know, celebrate wins. Sometimes I'll do like a weird fist pump if a day goes well or a meeting goes well or a show goes well or something in the family goes well, an event goes well, and I do this like Tiger Woods fist pump, but it's usually by myself. It's not really a lot of public praise. So I think I need to make a commitment to all of you that I'm going to start doing that, at least celebrating the moment, because I talked about in a previous, or actually in one of the blogs on our website at thedependentindependent.com, where you can read our blogs or my blog, you can stream the show, watch these videos that go up and all our other past minisodes and whatever videos we put up, whether it be just me or me with a co-host. But check it out. You can also contact me through the website. If you go on our contact page, put your email address, I'll have it, so we can get you guys up to speed on any live events or anything that we're doing in the future. So, lost my train of thought. So, we were talking about recognizing actually where you actually are. And this past week, or since the last time I posted a show, has been just event after event of people coming out and acknowledging that I'm actually doing things well, doing things the right way, and have something to give back. I was engaged today by somebody, or I know I was talking about Jess Brannis. Jess Brannis, she talked to me in regards to how my show inspires her to do a better show, when at the end of the day, I think her show inspires me to do my show better, because she's an unbelievable personality and is a force of nature. And I love the fact she's my friend and love the fact I can talk to her openly and share ideas with her. And I would have met her if I hadn't started this thing, which is why this thing is so cool. Today I connected with someone who is colleague / friends with a past co-host of the show. And I could have an opportunity to be on TV, it's online, but it's an online TV station where I could talk about what I do for a living and why I like it and why it makes a difference in other people's lives, which is really cool. Again, it's not superhero work, but I love inspiring others and mitigating obstacles so people can get where they want to be. That's kind of the intent of my presentation at the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Convention that's going to be in Swedesboro in September. But I want to leave you with that and keep it brief, that we all hit a point where we become unconsciously competent. And that means you hit a point where you don't even know how good you are. But I think to take that up a notch is to really accept the fact that maybe that's an opportunity to start giving back and paying forward. Someone took the time to show you something, make a mistake that you could learn from, or simply offer you some advice that's helped you get where you are now. It should be your purpose to be able to do that and continue that cycle, because nothing is more selfish than keeping things that can make others successful. And I've learned that in my career. I've learned that in this podcasting adventure. I learned that in my personal life. Sharing and making connections is what it's all about. But sharing that information that'll get people farther faster is the best way to do it. So pay it forward. Figure out what you're really good at. Find somebody else who wants to be good at that as well, and pay it forward. In episode 62, and this is weird, this is new for the Dependent Independent podcast. I don't usually do these, but I'm asking you, I need you to do some homework. I need you to go on Amazon or iTunes and rent this movie called The 7-Year Itch. It is a classic movie from the 1950s, and I'm still doing my research, but I've seen it a few times. It is a movie with Marilyn Monroe, and I was able to connect with someone who was connected to another podcast page that I follow, the Unpopular Culture Podcast, and Ashley Mullins, who's a singer and also a passionate Marilyn Monroe fan. She and I are going to break down The 7-Year Itch, a movie with Marilyn Monroe. She's a huge fan. And we're going to really talk about what everything from body image to what sexy is. And we're really going to take a deep dive on what that movie meant to both of us when we first saw it, and also what that movie means to society today. I know it's going to be deep, but the best way to follow is to go out and rent the movie. Go ahead and rent it. Please, just expand your comfort zone. Try something new as you're listening to this show. Go out and check out that movie, and that way you'll have full context. But we'll do a great job, and if we do our homework, a great job in letting our audience know exactly what the movie's about, so you get it. But I want to try something new. It's something, and again, it's really about me connecting with Ashley, because I think when we first engaged each other on the interwebs, on the Facebook post that we had on the Unpopular Culture podcast, she said she was really into old movies, and I mentioned the two favorite movies that I really like is Some Like It Hot and The 7-Year Itch, and she said I'm a huge Marilyn Monroe fan, and boom, that's how it worked. So that's what we're going to do. It may be different. I'm going to try it out. You never know. You got to try stuff that are new in this type of thing. Again, this is a 200 episode podcast, so between now and 200, we're going to do some weird shit. So not too weird shit. That's not too weird. Stuff that'll keep us safe. But I want to really try this out and see if it works. And it's for me. Selfishly, it's for me. I'm going to do it for me. And then eventually I'll talk to somebody else that wants to do a podcast about breaking down a movie and in a weird way, the independent way, and I'll be able to teach them because I did it already, because that's what I want to do with my experiences, pay them forward. This is MiniSode 61.5 of the Dependent Independent podcast. You can find us all over the interwebs on all the hyperlinks in the show notes. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook. I'm at thedependentindependent.com on Instagram and Twitter. Please connect with me. Please share the show and rate the show. I want to feel good about myself, so feel free to go on iTunes and rate us. It lets everyone else know what the show is about and that other people are pleased with the show, so they check it out. But the best way to build this community is to share it with others. And again, I want you to join me on this journey of conversations with not just you and those watching, but also those that join me as a co-host on the show. And I plan on having many more in the next few months. I don't want to ruin it. I know Jess Brandis and I, just talking today, are going to do some kind of duo podcast, crossover podcast that I'm really excited about, but I really got to think of the right time to do it and the right place to do it, because she loves doing podcasts way outside, maybe not so confined to this studio. Thank you for joining me at the Dependent Independent Podcast Studios. I don't know when this video goes up, and I got a brand new camera. You got to thank Sony, the AX33, unbelievable 4K camcorder. I don't have any worries now with my video, but this will go up for those visual people that don't want to listen or want to see me talk when you've already listened to me on the podcast, but you want to see me and check me out and like my videos. Thanks again for listening. MiniSode 61.5 of the Dependent Independent podcast, and I am out.